They say grief has no sound until it wails through stone. The hourglass turned pale in that winter hush, the snow outside falling like the ashes of forgotten vows. Hawksmere stood silent beneath a veil of white, a fortress suspended between prayer and despair. The echoes of men's ambition had quieted. In their place, only the whisper of loss remained. I, Lady Aurelia Ravenshade, bear witness to the moment when victory curdled into mourning, when the proud heart of Hawksmere bled not from sword or siege, but from the slow, merciless hand of hunger and death. The air trembled with Ilara's cry, a mother's dirge piercing through stone and sanctity alike. Within those walls faith faltered, alliances withered, and the snow itself became a shroud for hope. Ah, how fragile is righteousness when weighed against grief. Tonight we enter the stillness after the storm, a silence so thick it threatens to smother the living. For within that white expanse, something stirs. Not peace, but reckoning.
Chapter 20, Veil of White. The brittle silence after Cuthbert's retreat shattered with Ilara's wail. The raw grief, echoing from the infirmary, was a physical blow, cutting through Alianor's momentary triumph like a shard of ice. The victory over Cuthbert felt hollow, distant, as she descended the stairs towards the source of the sound, leaving Aemon sleeping fitfully in the solar. The infirmary was thick with the smell of herbs, despair, and death. Ilara knelt beside Davy's pallet, her face buried in the rough blanket, covering his small, still form. Bess stood nearby, her hands clasped, tears silently tracking through the grime on her cheeks. The other injured men watched, their own faces etched with a terrible understanding. Alianor knelt beside Ilara, placing a hand on the woman's shuddering shoulder. Words felt useless, insults to the depth of the loss. "I am so sorry, Ilara," she murmured, her own throat tight. "He fought bravely." Ilara lifted her head, her eyes red raw, filled with a bottomless well of pain that quickly ignited into accusation. Fought? Against what? The cold? The hunger? The darkness that's fallen on this place? Her voice rose, trembling with fury. Sister Marjorie was right, God's judgment, for turning against Sir Roland, for listening to whispers in the dark. She glared at Alianor, the grief twisting into something ugly and pointed. "My boy is dead! While you played games with priests and parchments?" Bess gasped. "Ilara? No? Lady Alianor?" "Lady Alianor brought the sheriff," Ilara spat, surging to her feet, pointing a shaking finger. "She brought the reckoning that closed the mine. That scattered the men who kept the larders full. Now we starve and freeze, and our children die." Her voice broke on a sob. "Sir Roland kept us fed. He kept the wolves at bay. Maybe he wasn't kind, but he was strong. And now we have nothing but ghosts and empty promises." She collapsed back onto her knees, her body racked with sobs, the anger spent, leaving only desolation. The accusation hung heavy in the air. Other faces in the infirmary reflected a flicker of the same fear, the same desperate longing for the devil they knew. Marjorie's poison, watered by grief and cold, was taking root. Alianor felt the fragile unity she'd fought for, cracking under the weight of Davy's small, cold body. "Ilara," Alianor said, her voice low, but carrying the weight of the stones around them. "Davy died of a fever no herb could cure, brought low by the hardship Roland's greed inflicted when he ignored warnings and sent men to their deaths. The darkness was Roland's making, long before the sheriff came. His strength was a lie built on theft and blood." She looked around at the watching faces. "I cannot bring Davy back. I cannot fill the granary by wishing. But I will fight, with every breath, to see no more children die of cold or hunger in this keep. On my life, I swear it." She met Ilara's tear-filled eyes. "Grieve for your son. Curse the fates. But do not let Roland's shadow steal your heart, along with your child. His lies killed as surely as any fever. She stood, the silence now thick with shared sorrow and the unanswerable pain of loss. Bess, prepare Davy for... Her voice faltered. Father Clement will say the words at dawn. We will bury him in the small plot near the chapel, where the sun touches first. She turned and walked out, the image of Davy's pale face seared into her mind, a stark counterpoint to Cuthbert's smirking piety. The siege wasn't just physical. It was a war for the soul of Hawksmere, fought in the freezing dark over the body of a child. Dawn brought no reprieve. The snow fell steadily, piling in drifts against the walls, muffling the world in an eerie, oppressive silence. The small grave dug near the chapel was a raw wound in the white expanse. Father Clement's voice, roughened by cold and grief, recited the prayers over Davy's shrouded form as Alara wept silently, supported by other women. Alianor stood apart, head bowed, the cold biting deeper than any blade. The meager firewood from Thorn's Hollow was already dwindling. After the burial, she called a council in the marginally warmer Great Hall. Eamon, pale but upright, leaning heavily on his staff. Tom, Gareth, Father Clement, and Bess. The atmosphere was grim. The furnace cart, Tom stated flatly, won't come in this. Not for days, maybe weeks. The south track's buried. Which means Cuthbert's promises are just wind for now, Eamon added, his voice tight with pain. But it also means we're cut off. No news in or out. No sheriff's men returning soon. The venison broth kept the worst hunger at bay last night, Bess reported. But the oats, sparingly used, maybe 3 days. The salt helps, but it's not food. The wood? She gestured to the hearth, where a few logs burned, low, even careful, maybe 4 days. Gareth slammed a fist on the table, a rare show of anger cutting through his grief. We need that wood from the hollow, properly hauled, and game. Sitting here, we die slow. The snow's deep, Gareth, Tom cautioned, deep and treacherous. The ponies, the sledges. We barely made it back with Eamon half dead and a fraction of what's there. We go on foot, Gareth insisted, his eyes blazing. Snowshoes. We can make sledges to drag. Smaller party, faster. Jory, Mick, Will, me. We know the way Eamon showed us. We bring back what we can carry, mark the rest for later. Eamon shook his head. The path I took skirts a ravine. In this snow, unseen, one misstep. Staying here is a misstep with only one end, Gareth retorted. We're miners, Eamon, used to dark, tight places, judging unstable ground. This snow, it's just another kind of rock. We go. Today. Before the light fades further. Alianor looked from Gareth's desperate determination to Tom's grim practicality to Eamon's worry. The Thorns' hollow cache was their only tangible hope beyond the stalled furnace cart. But losing more men. Gareth, if the ground is unsafe... I lost 8 men to Roland's greed in that mine. Gareth interrupted, his voice raw. I won't lose more sitting idle while their families freeze. We go. We're careful. We return. It wasn't a request. Alianor held his gaze, seeing the unspoken plea beneath the anger. He needed to act, to fight the helplessness. Very well. Tom, ensure they have the best snowshoes, ropes, what dry rations we can spare, flasks with hot water wrapped tight. Go at noon, when the light is strongest. Return before full dark. No heroics. If the way is blocked, you turn back. Understood? Gareth nodded curtly. Understood, milady. As the men dispersed to prepare, Alianor turned to Eamon. You shouldn't be out of bed. And you shouldn't be carrying the weight of this keep alone, he countered, lowering himself carefully into a chair by the hearth. Gareth's right. Action is better than waiting to die. But the ravine, it's a bad spot. The snow hides old slips. He rubbed his temples. Cuthbert, quiet, smugly waiting. He knows the snow serves him, delays the reckoning, lets his whispers spread. She sat opposite him, the warmth of the fire doing little to dispel the chill inside. Ilara, Grief twists the mind, Eamon said gently. Marjorie poured poison on an open wound. We need that for Nesgrain, Alianor. Not for Cuthbert's victory, but to staunch the bleeding. We need leverage more, she replied, touching the hidden pocket where Eleanor's letters lay. Cuthbert fears those letters, but Furness Abbey has its own power. They could dismiss Eleanor's words as the ramblings of a troubled woman. We need something undeniable, something that forces their hand against Roland, not against us. A thought struck her. Marjorie. She knew Roland intimately, his secrets, his dealings. If we could break her, get her to testify willingly, beyond what she told me. Eamon's eyes narrowed. A frightened rabbit can turn ferocious, and she's had time to weave her stories. Cuthbert's arrival gave her hope. Hope can be a weapon too, Alianor murmured, an idea forming, cold and calculating. If she believes her salvation lies with Furness, and we control the path to it. Before she could elaborate, Bess hurried in, her face pale. Milady, it's Lord Edmund. He's agitated, more than usual. Kept pointing at the snow, babbling about white riders and blood on the ice. Took 3 men to calm him. He's asleep now, but white riders, blood on the ice. The words sent an involuntary shiver down Alianor's spine. Edmund's mind was a broken mosaic, but sometimes the fragments reflected terrifying truths. Was it merely the storm, or a warning? Noon came, gray and heavy. Gareth, Jory, Mick, and young Will, bundled and equipped with rough snowshoes and small drag sledges, passed through the gate. They looked like ghosts vanishing into the white wall of falling snow. The watching villagers offered silent prayers, their faces etched with renewed anxiety. Alianor stood on the battlement, watching until the last hint of movement disappeared, the silence of the storm closing in like a tomb. The afternoon crawled by, measured by the deepening snow and the dwindling fire in the great hall. Alianor visited Edmund, finding him unnervingly still in his drugged sleep. She checked the infirmary, where Bess and a subdued Ilara tended the sick. She walked the courtyard, the snow soaking her boots, exchanging terse words with Tom about the watch. Cuthbert observed her from a window in the guest quarters, his expression unreadable. As dust began to stain the white world gray, the tension became a physical presence. Gareth's party should have been sighted by now. Alianor returned to the battlements, Eamon limping up to join her despite her protests. They scanned the swirling gloom, straining for any sign of returning men. Nothing. The light faded rapidly. Torches were lit on the walls, their guttering flames casting long dancing shadows on the snow below, doing little to pierce the veiled darkness beyond. They should be back, Eamon muttered, his knuckles white on the staff. Perhaps they found more than expected. Took longer to load, Alianor said, the words sounding hollow, even to her own ears. Or the ravine. Eamon didn't finish the thought. A shout came from the gatehouse tower. Movement! South track. One figure. Alianor's heart leapt, then plummeted. One? She squinted, following the sentry's pointing arm. A dark shape, small and slow, struggled through the deep snow towards the gate. Not 4 men, not with sledges. One stumbling form. Open the gate! Carefully. Tom bellowed from below. The figure staggered through the opening as the gate creaked shut behind it. It wasn't Gareth, Jory, or Mick. It was young Will. He collapsed onto his knees just inside the gate, gasping, coated head to toe, in snow and ice, his face a mask of terror and exhaustion. One snowshoe was missing. The drag sledge he'd pulled was gone. Tom and others rushed forward, pulling him up. Will! What happened? Where are the others? Will tried to speak, his teeth chattering violently. Gone, he rasped, his eyes wide and unseeing. The white, it swallowed them. Where, Will? Where? Tom shook him gently. The ravine, Will choked out, pointing a trembling hand back the way he'd come. We were crossing near the old marker stone. Gareth went first, testing the snow. It just gave way. A sob racked his thin frame. A whole shelf. just crumbled. Took Gareth. Jory tried to grab him. Mick too. The edge went. They just vanished into the white. He dissolved into uncontrollable sobs. I was behind. The edge held. I saw them fall. Heard nothing, just the snow falling. Silence descended, colder and deeper than the storm. Gareth, Jory, Mick, swallowed by the ravine. 3 more lives added to Roland's grim tally, claimed by the desperate struggle for survival he had forced upon them. Alianor stood frozen on the battlement, the howl of the wind the only sound. Below, Will's sobs echoed the desolation within the walls. The furnace cart was stalled. The Thorn's hollow cache was now a grave. The false dawn of Cuthbert's promises was extinguished, replaced by the utter blackness of a starless, snow-choked night. The siege tightened its grip, the walls of Hawksmere feeling less like a refuge and more like the crumbling edge of the ravine itself. The white riders of Edmund's delirium seemed to gallop just beyond the torchlight, and the blood on the ice was their own.
It is not the darkness that consumes us, it is the white. As the last embers of daylight sank into the drifts, Hawksmere ceased to breathe. The world was white, endless, merciless. Beneath that purity, death hid its face and called itself mercy. The men were gone, swallowed by the ravine, buried in the snow's indifferent heart. Their names would not echo in song, only in the hollow silence left behind. Alianor stood upon the battlement, not as a lady of the keep, but as its last sentinel, her soul bound to every stone that still defied the storm. The white riders had come, unseen yet undeniable, their passage written in the wind and the blood beneath the ice. And I, Lady Aurelia Ravenshade, have learned this truth. There is no victory in survival when hope is frozen in the marrow. Only those who can walk through the white, unblinking, unyielding, will find the dawn again. For beyond the veil of white lies not salvation, but the reckoning yet to come.